Hello there. Welcome to the Board Game Barbecue. You are joined by myself, Steve, and Sarah. How you going, Sarah?
Hey, good, thanks, Steve.
That's great to hear. We are doing a review of the Rise of Ix expansion for Dune Imperium. Sarah's only just recently done a review of Dune Imperium a couple of weeks ago, but we both played the game over a year ago when it first came out and a few times since then. Uh, just on a scale of 1 to 10, Sarah, how keen were you for this expansion content initially?
I was really keen because I heard that it addressed some of the things like that I mentioned in my review that that maybe weren't my favorite parts of the game. So I was really keen to try it to see how they address those things, like the factions being different from each other and things like that. So I'm excited to talk about it.
All right. Well, before we get to talking about it, we've actually pre-recorded a bit where I go through all of the new bits to the Rise of Ix expansion, what it adds to the game, and how it changes things up. So we'll cut to that now. Today we're looking at the Dune Imperium Rise of Ix expansion for Dune Imperium. The game I've set up here has all of the additional bits already added. I'll go through each of them individually. It also has the deluxe expansion as well. So this is all the premium bits as well. So if it does look a little bit different to your game, that would be why. There's things like the Alliance tokens are actual minis. It's mostly cosmetic. In fact, it's all cosmetic. Your troops are now actual troops, not cubes. And you have 3 characters that are minis as well. What else has changed? That's pretty much it with the expanded content. The Mentat is a miniature as well. And we have this beautiful first player token, which is just gorgeous. But more importantly, you get a bigger box that can house all of the new content from Rise of Ix and all of the miniatures, etc. for the upgraded components. Let's start out with what's new with Rise of Ix. Firstly, we have over here, this is the tech area. So this offers 2 new spaces. You'll also notice that this section here is also new. It replaces the old section above it. So I'm not sure how to pronounce these words. So Chome and the Landsrade Council has been upgraded, which does promote an interesting situation in the game, which Sarah and I will talk about shortly. And so you've got these new spaces. So what do they each do? Well, the tech negotiation's pretty straightforward. You put a worker here, you discard a card with this symbol, and you can buy one of these techs for 1 less spice than the cost shown on the tech. The cost on the tech is shown in the top right corner. Some of them have immediate benefits like this one, so you'll get a water when you play this one, and this one allows you to also get a water whenever you win a conflict. But there are some really good ones here. For example, if you've got 3 influence or more on 4 influence tracks, you get a victory point at the end of the game. And when you pick up this tile, you also get to move up the influence track. There's lots of different ones in here as well. So there's ones that will allow you to, when you once per round get a troop. There's ones in here that will win tiebreakers at end game, plus give you 2 intrigue cards. So that's really good if you're in a combat strategy. But there's loads of other different types in here. The techs are really interesting. So what they generally do is they give you an immediate benefit sometimes, and they'll always have an ongoing benefit that you can trigger at different points in the game. So that's what the top spot does. It also gives you 1 extra credit to spend when you buy cards at the end of the round. The second section is called the Dreadnought. So this is a new element to the game as well. The Dreadnought gives you a Dreadnought, which are these little tiny little ships. And they will go into your garrison. They don't go into the battle because there's no swords here. But you'll also be able to buy a tech, but this time you have to pay the full price. Now there is one other thing I didn't mention on this top action here, the tech negotiation. Instead of buying a tech, you can actually put one of your cubes into this section here. And then at any point, when you come and take either of these actions in the future, you can remove every cube that you have here, or as many cubes as you like from here, and that will reduce the cost of the spice needed by 1 cube for every single cube, by 1 for every cube you have here. So that's really handy because some of these techs, like these ones are all 2 that are out on the board, but some of them are 5. So they're a bit hard to obtain because spice is a lot harder to get with the new expansion. So this is a great way to reduce the cost potentially all the way down to 0. It's a very cool idea. Now the other thing about this is whenever someone buys a tech, it is immediately replaced from the top of the deck. There's no having to wait till the end of your turn. You immediately see what the next tech is. So that's pretty handy as well. Okay, so that's the Dreadnoughts. Now, what the Dreadnoughts do is when they come into combat, they're actually worth 3. So 3 strength as opposed to 2 for military, and 1 for your daggers on your reveal cards. But that's not the only benefit. So the benefit of the Dreadnought is A, it's 3 in the battle. B, if you win, you actually place it on one of the 3 control areas, even if it's already covered. So let's pretend that blue had Arakeen. You could literally go and put it on top, and now for the next round, you get the benefit if anyone goes to Arakeen, not the person who had the flag there previously. But you could also go to an area that doesn't have a flag and immediately claim that benefit whenever someone takes that action. After that round, then it comes back into your garrison. So it kind of nerfs you for a round, gives everyone else a chance to fight without your garrison in the next battle. And the reason is, why that is, unlike troops, after a combat, troops go back to your supply. After a combat with the Dreadnought goes back to your garrison if you lose. So it's because it's stronger, it doesn't get defeated each round. So if you lose, you can bring it back to your garrison and put it straight back in for the next fight if you've got the ability to put troops into battle. So there's 2 different terms now. There's units and there's troops. So whenever it says units, that refers to either a troop or a Dreadnought, and obviously troop just refers to the troops and not the Dreadnought. So whenever you can put units into a battle, you can put your Dreadnought into a battle. Now that also it actually changes the word, so this symbol also means units, not troops. So that's what the Dreadnoughts do. Super powerful. You can have up to 2 of them, so that's 6 strength in a combat. And one of these techs allows you to, instead of bringing it to an area to control, you can actually bring it back to your supply and get a victory point each time you do that. Sounds great, but of course, not only does that nerf you for the next round's battle, but it also requires you to go over here to this space to get your Dreadnought back into your garrison and then go to another space to move it in. So it also kind of costs you 2 turns as well. So be aware of that. So that's the tech board. I really like the tech board. We're going to move into Chome now. In Chome, we have the shipping track. So the shipping track is a really interesting way of interacting with the game as well. So if you come to the top spot here, you can only come here if you've got 2 influence at the Spacing Guild. You can interact with this track twice. So you can either move up or move down. When you move up, it's quite simple. You'll just move up and nothing happens. So I can move up twice. The bottom area, it gives you 1 Solari and allows you to interact with this track once. So let's pretend I went there and then I use that again. Now, let's assume that I came back and used a smuggling at a later stage, or I interacted with this track in any way at a later stage. When you drop down, you get all these benefits to the left. They're all cumulative, so you get up all, and you can do them in any order. So you don't have to do the top one, then the middle one, then the bottom one. You can rearrange it, because you might want to do the bottom one to get the spice to then spend on the tech that you get for 2 less spice. So potentially you could get a 4 tech just from using this for free. So you basically drop down. So you can buy a tech for 2 less spice. You can get 2 troops. You get to move up a track of your choice, and you can either get 2 spice or 5 Solari, but everyone else gets 1 Solari. And like I said, you can do these in any action. What you can't do is stop midway down. Once you decide to go down, you go all the way to the bottom and you take all the rewards. Now, of course, you might not want to go all the way to the top. If you came over to this space and were able to interact twice, you might want to move up once and then immediately move down just to take the 5 Solari or the 2 spice. So you don't have to go all the way up, but when you come down, you have to go all the way down. So that is the shipping track. We'll then move over to the Landsrade Council, and this is similar to the previous section of this board. If you just look at it, these Hall of Oratory and Rally Troops have gone, and they've just been replaced with that Chome area. So you can still go to the High Council, you can still get the Mentat, and you can still get your extra worker for 8 Solari. Aside of the spaces on the board, the other benefits that this expansion gives are extra people to play with. So we've got Tessia Vernius here, and she has these snooper tokens that when basically she gets to put them out, and then whenever she uses her signet ability, she gets to gain an influence with a faction that has her snooper token. So that's very cool. We've got Prince Rombor Vernius, and this, when he uses his signet ability, he can gain a tech or he can do tech negotiation. I'll see if I can get that in focus for you there. There we go. So that's, he still has to pay for the tech, but he can put the cube there in the tech negotiation, which is quite good as well. And his Dreadnoughts have a strength of 4 instead of 3, so very powerful. Princess Yuna Moritani. This is the one I play with in the game that I played most recently. And you can see there, her signet ability is super strong, but super costly. So you have to trade 7 Solari in. You can move up on any influence track, gain a troop, and gain a spice. Sounds great, but getting 7 Solari in this game does create a bit of a problem. And you also start with no more water, but when you gain Solari, you gain 1 more than you are supposed to. So that is a good thing. We have Viscount Hundro Moritani. So he also interacts with the new stuff. So when he uses his signet ability, you can spend 1 spice to move up the shipping track, or interact with the shipping track, I should say. And at the start of the game, he gets to look at the top 2 cards of the intrigue deck, keep 1, and put the other one back on top. So not only does he get 1, he also knows what the next card is. Elisa Ikaz, again, if I'm pronouncing this incorrectly, I apologize. I'm not massive on the Dune universe. I've only seen the movie and played the game. That's it. So again, here you're just spending 1 Solari to gain yourself a fold space card. But you kind of plan. This is an interesting mechanic. Her ability is at the start of each round, you put a card away. On your second turn, you can either return that card. You can return that card to your hand and use it. If you use it and it has only 1 icon, so in other words, only 1 shape, then you gain a spice. Otherwise, you gain a Solari. So it's kind of like a good planner. If you like programming in games, that one's probably the one for you. And then Archduke Armand Ikaz. So on the reveal turn, if you have at least 2 agents on the standard 3 spaces on the board, you may trash one of your cards in play. So a really good one for people who like trashing mechanisms, which I certainly do. You may require a card that costs 3 or less. So you can just get one. You don't have to pay anything for it if it's 3 or less. So they're all the new houses that you can play, so new characters you can play as in the Rise of X expansion. Aside of that, factions and obviously the new elements of the board. The other things that Rise of X adds are extra conflict cards. So some of those conflict cards interact with the new items that have been introduced from the Rise of X expansion. We've also got some more cards to purchase, obviously. So again, cards that will use the benefits of Rise of X a bit better. There's also a couple of new symbols on the card, so I'll see if I can find one here. So that symbol to the left there, it's either the down arrow or the cross, which means the discard or the trash icon. Both of these cards have it in their corners there. What that means is when you either discard or trash a card, so if you have a card that says discard a card or trash a card, if you discard these cards, any one of these cards, then you get the benefits shown there on the reveal ability. So you get that when you discard it or when you trash it. Now, because you can discard from your trash pile, you can trash from your discard pile, you can actually trigger this twice if you've got 2 cards. So you can trigger it by discarding it and then triggering it again by trashing it. But what's also cool is it's in the reveal section. So when you reveal, you will also get that benefit. And some of these benefits are pretty cool. Like you can see the bottom one there is to go up a Bene Gesserit. So this one allows you, let's try and get that in focus. Oh, sorry about the focus here, guys. So the bottom one allows you to go up the Bene Gesserit track. The top one allows you to interact with the shipping line. So again, using those Rise of X benefits. So a few more cards in the deck. The final thing that comes in the Rise of X expansion is a variant on how to play the game. And this is a more aggressive variant that you replace one of your cards from your starting deck with this Control the Spice card, which basically allows you, when you play it, to spend a spice to trash a card and get a troop. You also start with 5 troops in the battle instead of 3. You also start with 5 troops in the combat instead of 3 with this expansion, or this variant, I should say. So that is another thing that it adds to the game. But that is everything that comes in the Rise of X expansion. Let's go back to Sarah and I, where we discuss what we actually think of the expansion and tell you our thoughts. Okay, so there you have it. That is the Rise of X expansion. Hopefully you saw enough there to see what it adds to this excellent game, Dune Imperium, one of the games of the year in 2020. So let's just get straight to it, Sarah. The expansion itself adds a lot of things, as we talked about. I would like to start with the techs, if that's all right with you,
Yeah,
because
that's great. Let's start with that.
yeah, everyone loves a good tech tree, and especially us that like the T games are very familiar with techs being fantastic.
Yeah.
How did you find the powers of the techs?
I thought they were really quite interesting and varied. They also give you, some of them give you like a bonus straight away that can be really helpful. Like it could be,
Mm.
just to give you that thing that you really need. So it might be troops or it could be water. It could be. So, in with the theme of the tech, you might get an instant bonus. But the main thing I liked about the techs, and this is like, I guess, with any kind of tech track that you might utilize in a different game, is that it gives you some control over your asymmetry. So this is what I mean by it sort of addressed the part about the game that I thought was a little bit on the weaker side, which was the faction abilities weren't huge. They didn't make a massive difference to the way that I would play the game.
Mm.
But the techs actually do make a difference to how I would play the game. For example, so I think one of my favorite techs is the one where if you use the freighter track, which we'll talk about, and that you would have seen in the summary, you can actually like put your troops, so it lets you get more troops and put
Mm.
them into the battle straight away.
Yeah.
So having that tech means that you are going to utilize that as much as possible. So it does change the way that you play the game, and it adds complexity, which is really good. I think that it's definitely a plus. I love the techs. I don't think there's anything bad about it. There's also some that like give you a crazy amount of victory points, or can give
Mm.
you
Yeah.
extra victory points at the end, which I thought were really interesting too, if you can manage to like pull off what they're asking. So there's one that wants you to get up the alliance tracks up to level 3 on all of
Yeah.
them, which is quite a push. Like that's not easy to do.
Mm.
So that one was interesting too. Yeah, what about you, Steve? Did you like the tech?
Yeah, it was really interesting because we play the first person who got a tech in the first game I played of this. They got the one where whenever there was a dagger, like a battle dagger, it counted as two on
Yes.
a
Yeah.
card. So every card had one additional. So they just started buying all the cheap cards that gave one dagger because now they're two daggers, and then also got cards that allowed them to draw more cards. So they just kept on getting more and more, and so they were in every single battle.
Yes. Can I say one thing about this? Because in my review of the base game, there was a card that I said I would never buy this in a million years.
Yes.
And I actually bought it because it had a dagger
Yeah.
and it was cheap and I had that tech and
Yeah.
it's so good. And then you have to, like, if you reveal 3 daggers,
Yeah.
they could be single daggers, but then you've got 6 extra. Crazy.
And it became a situation because we all over pushed into the battle to counter the fact that he had that tech.
Yeah.
Uh, and when he got that tech, we all like, wow, that's overpowered. But because you're so aware of what's happening on the table, you make it less overpowered. He didn't end up winning the
Yeah.
game. It didn't. It just meant that he was in every battle. Uh, and concurrently, I had the tech where if I went to fight with Dreadnoughts, which we'll get to in a moment as well,
Yeah.
that ability to bring it back to control an area, I could actually bring it back to my supply and get a victory point.
Yes. That was
So
a good
I
idea.
wanted to get into fights with Dreadnoughts, but because everyone knew that, and they were trying to do everything they could to get rid of my Dreadnoughts. So it really created a bit more battle tension, I found, for those two particular techs. But as a general rule, like you say, I thought they were really good for getting something that you may feel is missing from your engine to just sort of increase what you're trying to do. But at
Yes.
the same time, they're not they look and they sound overpowered, but they seem to fall into place quite well.
Yeah, and they make the game very interesting in terms of the fact that your spaces that you want to go to, uh, they work with the tech. So basically, if you have that one where you want to get your dreadnoughts in, you're going to want to go to the dreadnought space all the time. So it makes it tighter as well and more tension on the board itself,
Yeah,
because people might want to block you from that space so that you can't
that's
get
right.
your dreadnought in there. So yeah, all around so good. Really
Well,
elevates the game.
we've mentioned dreadnoughts a few times, and that's one of the tech tiles. So there's two tech tiles. One allows you to get a tech for cheap, or it allows you to put down some negotiation. Negotiations are simply you put a cube on a space, and whenever you go to buy a tech later, you can remove any number of cubes to reduce the cost of the tech, which is pretty cool, especially early game, because I don't know about you, it's probably an overall noticeable thing, but I found that resources were much harder to come by
Yes.
in the
Yeah.
expansion. So that's one of the spaces, and the other spaces allows you to buy a tech, but also get a dreadnought. And as we said in the run through, dreadnoughts count as 3 power in combat, which is huge. And when I play this game, I managed to get, because I had that tech, I got 2 Dreadnoughts out on the board before anybody else. And I've put them both into battle. So I'm sitting there pretty thinking there's no way I'm
Yeah.
going to lose this battle.
Yeah.
And then because of the terminology with the rules where it talks about the word units, meaning either troops or dreadnoughts, another player played a card where his soldier came into the combat and immediately pushed 2 units out. So like this one person going, rah, scaring away 2 dreadnoughts. Like, this will never happen. But it was just, and that was hilarious because I only actually ended up winning 1 combat with my dreadnoughts.
Oh, wow.
Because it was that one where I had 2 and no one else had any. But then everyone else, the next round, went and got dreadnoughts. Well, not the next round, but someone else went and got dreadnoughts, and then someone else went and got dreadnoughts. So suddenly my advantage was being depleted.
Yeah.
So that was really cool. I kind of left me behind because I put so much stock into winning that particular combat and then being pushed back.
Yeah. And those, like you said, those dreadnoughts, they just go back into your garrison. So they don't come back into your hand unless you have that tech that you can and get points. And also I really like that the spaces, you can put the dreadnought, if you win a battle, you can put the dreadnought on like someone else's flag so that those spaces, you're getting those resources for them and controlling that area temporarily.
I love that because it gives you a benefit for winning, but it also nerfs you for the next round of combat.
Yeah.
Because it stays there until the end of the next round, so you don't get to put it straight back into combat. But I think that's a really nice touch.
Yeah. And I use the faction that your dreadnoughts are actually 4, not 3 power.
That's a huge power.
Yeah, it was great.
But then again, it's the same thing, right? It's huge, but it's controllable.
Yes, and I think that, like you said, it does seem very well balanced overall as well. But we can get into that in the overall things. But yeah, the dreadnought. The thing I liked about the dreadnoughts as well is that there was some extra planning that was needed. To actually go to those spaces, recruit them, put them into the battle, and then if they go out of the battle into your garrison, you have to go to the dreadnought space to put them back in. So it's really interesting. I think that the board just seems way tighter.
Yeah, and you're losing actions that you could be doing other things for.
That's right.
Because you don't, like, at best you're getting 3 actions a round.
Yeah.
So losing an action to go and get your dreadnought ready again is a big thing.
Yeah, and then in the back of your head, you're like, but I want to buy tech. I need to go get spice. And it's like, when am I going to do that?
Yeah, that's right.
I have no time to do that.
So speaking of spice and Solari, like I said before, I found it a lot tougher to get Solari in particular because the other new component that comes is the board that goes over a part of the map which blocks out 2 of the spaces. It blocks out... where is it?
Yeah, it blocks out rally troops, which is like the 4 cube,
yes,
4 cube space, which is like my favorite space. It, other than Carthag, it blocks that out.
And it blocks Selma Lange, which is where you get rid of your spice to get lots of
big
Solari.
Money. Yeah,
and then the other spot that gives you 3 Solari just straight up. And playing the base game without the expansion, I always found that at some point Solari just became useless. You just got too much of it. Where in this game, far out, I didn't get my 3rd worker for ages because I just couldn't build up that 8 Solari in the bank, which is interesting.
Yeah. I mean, it depends on like turn order as well. Like I know playing it with 4 people, sometimes it can be really hard to sell your spice because if someone else is going there all the time and you can't sell it. So some games it was tight with the Solari, but this one definitely I felt like the Solari was tight as well as water and spice. Usually it's just the water and the spice that's the real issue.
So that brings us to the shipping track, which one of the spaces gives you an option to get Solari and spice. And from what I can tell, it's pretty much the easiest place on the board to get Solari.
Yes.
So this track where you can interact with this track, there's a symbol which is essentially interaction symbol, and it's called the freighter. So you go there and you can either move up however as many spaces as there are freighter icons, or you can use one of those freighter icons to move all the way down and pick up all those benefits along the way.
Yeah.
I really appreciated the fact that you could actually take those in any order.
Yes.
Because the first one, I think you get a tech for 2 less, but the bottom one gives you 2 spice. So if you match them together, you could technically get a tech for 4 less spice, which is a massive benefit to but you've got to be at the top to get that. So
yes, yeah.
How did you find the the shipping track?
I liked the freighter a lot. So this is another example of how not only is there like a bit more complexity added to the game, but there's also more planning because again, like you say, you ideally you want to sort of get to the top of that track and then pull out the freighter and get all of the things. But sometimes it's not beneficial to do that because you might just be desperate for that spice or you might be desperate for that cash. And the funny thing about taking the cash over the spice, because that's an option, like that's an
Mm,
or, not an and, is that everyone else gets $1. Like
yeah,
everyone else gets a
you're
salary.
helping everyone
So
else.
yeah, so that's really cool. So I really liked that there were so many more options in this expansion, and that track I really enjoyed. And
Mm,
that second spot where you get the 2 troops and also go up the ally track just makes it a little bit easier. You can choose one of
mm.
the allies to move your influence in, and that just made it so much easier to go up those tracks as well, which I
Yeah,
really enjoyed. And obviously, like, and that shipping with the shipping guild, if you have the 2 influence on the shipping guild, you have that special spot, right, where you can freighter, it's double the freighter action, so you can
yeah.
go up one and then bring it back. And I did have that tech where I could get not only an extra troop for that second space, but put them straight into battle. So the freighter track was just huge for my game.
Wow.
I
Yeah.
really enjoyed it. Yeah.
I really used the freighter track more than anything just to get Solari because I had
Yeah.
the character that you spend your signet ring ability was to spend 7 Solari to move up in an alliance track, get spice, and I can't remember the other thing was get something else.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
But 7 Solari is impossible to get. So my signet ring
Yeah.
ability was pretty well useless for the first couple of rounds. But the easiest way for me to get Solari was to go to the interstellar shipping space, the one that requires the 2 in the spacing guild, and just go up one and then down one and take the 5 Solari.
Yeah.
But like you say, I'm looking at that second space going, oh, I'm giving up so much just to get
Yeah.
money right now. But then I'm like, oh, but I'll get it back when I use my signet ring ability. And then you're
Yeah.
like, you're sitting there with 7 money going, all right, now I can use my signet ring ability, although I'm only 1 away from getting my 3rd worker. Or, I could go and get a seat on the High Council. Like, so many decisions.
Yes, and I really like that the freighter, it covers up that rally troop space with the 4 cubes, right? So
Hmm.
it's not like every time someone goes there in the base game, you're like, oh, because they're putting 4 troops in their garrison, and it's quite like it's quite good. And if that
Yeah.
person gets it twice, 2 rounds, if you let them get it 2 rounds, they've got so many troops that are ready to go into battle. So the fact that you have to actually plan to get troops in this, it just again,
Hmm.
it like you said, it increases that battle tension. It makes it seem a little bit more balanced as well.
Hmm.
Or when I say balanced, I just mean like it seems tighter. Yeah, so yeah, really enjoyable. That was my favorite part, the freighter track, especially with that tech. I was just
Yeah,
using
that's a
that
great
every
combination.
time.
So we've talked about the shipping track and the dreadnoughts and the tech. Did you come across many of the cards that are new to the game from this expansion?
Yeah, I think I chose the infiltration. I got an infiltration card. I think I used that once. So that's the one where you can use a space that's occupied by someone else. That got me, out of a tight situation. So
Hmm.
that's kind of neat. But I still think that I was using the board and the new spaces and those techs more than I was concentrating on getting high powered cards. So that part of the game for me, and I will
Hmm.
try and utilize that strategy, go for good cards, but I think that part of the game for me was still the weaker part of the game.
See, I one of the things that I find a little bit tricky with base game Dune Imperium is to get a good trash engine going. So getting rid of the
Yeah.
bad cards, and there's definitely a lot of cards in this expansion that remedy that. So
Yeah.
you can get a decent trash engine going, and then they've got those unload cards where you can actually get extra benefits for trashing particular cards, which are huge. And
Yeah.
they've got both the discard and the trash icon on them, so you can actually discard them in one with one play, and on the next play you can trash them from your discard, so you can actually trigger them twice.
Yeah.
And then
But
even
you
if
need
you,
a trash card to do that, right? It
that's
doesn't
right,
trash
you've got to have them in
itself.
your hand. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. But then you've got the other advantage that if you don't discard or trash them, you can still reveal them and get those benefits. And the benefits are quite good on those cards.
Yes. Yeah. I did have one of those cards. I just could not, for the life of me, find a trash card. So I couldn't
Yeah,
utilize it as much as I wanted to. But I think they are very useful.
yeah, that's for sure. And just almost like shining a light on, hey, trashing is a good thing. You should be considering this. And because I did find it may have just been the shuffle, but I did find that there was a lot more in the expansion, a lot more of the trash ability cards, so giving you the option to trash,
Yeah.
which in any deck builder is always a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Uh, the only other real thing that the expansion adds, which I'm guessing you probably didn't do either, was the variant, the
I haven't done it.
epic
The
game
epic
mode.
game? No, I
Yeah.
haven't done that one yet.
So I'm just based on what the rule set is. I'm guessing it's just more combat heavy because you start with 5 troops in your garrison, and you get that extra card that is a trash card and also as a troop card and a spice card. So everything else kind of ramps up. So then you can just focus on combat. I'm guessing
Yes.
that's how it plays.
And you play to 12 points. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think so. So you get straight into the action, but you go to 12 points. So it may take a little longer. I'm assuming it takes longer, but maybe not if you're starting with so many troops. So we'll have to try that one. I did try the solo mode. Did you try the solo
I
with
haven't
the
tried the
expansion?
solo, no, not with the expansion yet. So I've actually had the pleasure of being able to play this with people a couple of times, which has been
Yeah, that's nice.
lovely. It wasn't hard to fill a table when I said, "Hey, I've got the Rise of X expansion."
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so as I said about balance, I feel like it was quite tight. Like I played with the bots, and it was really like a leapfrog situation. If they got one over me, I would then get one over them. So I think it just works so well with the bots. They also give you the benefit, like if they get that extra Solari space, because they use the freighter track too, and then you get an extra dollar, and it's like, oh, I got an extra dollar,
cool.
which is nice. Yeah, so it worked really well. They get the tech tiles as well. There's certain tech tiles that they can claim, but they can't claim all of them. So that worked really well. Again, very smooth experience, just like in the base game. So yeah, I recommend it solo. It's quite fun, and it's not easy. Like they're going to be on your heels the whole time. I think I've only won once against the bots on veteran. So yeah, and because there's 2 bots, you really need it to be a smooth experience. If there was 2
Yeah,
bots and it was really fiddly, it would just be too much.
100%. I think that you talked about it there in a solo, but just in general, this game is a really close game. In every time I played it, especially now with the expansion, the games that we had, I think the end score was 10-9-8-7 and then 10-9-8-8. So it was really tight. And even in one of those games, I was in last position in the last round, won a combat with my Dreadnoughts and brought my Dreadnought back. So then I gained 3 points from that. So I jumped up into like second place or something. So it
Yeah.
always felt like there was never a front runner. There was never a back marker. Everyone was still in it with the fight, which, in fact, we did that thing, which has not happened with me before, where someone triggered the end game
Yeah.
and then lost a victory point. So removed back under.
Oh.
But as it turned out, the winner still got to 10. But yeah, it was like, we're like, oh, wow, what happens here? Because it's been triggered, but the condition is no longer met, but it still
Right.
triggers the end game. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was very cool.
That is interesting. And I did like the differences in the combat cards. Like there's more variety in the rewards. And so that one where you can get a point, but you can also trade at the time, I think it's 6 Solari for another point and 4 spice for another point or something like that. So it's potentially 3 points you can get from that, from winning that. Just makes it so exciting, that particular combat, because everyone wants to do that or stop someone from doing it.
Probably something that may get overlooked with this expansion as time goes by, because it'll just go into the deck. But the fact that there's a couple more end game intrigue cards, because that was always a problem with the base game. You only ever had those 2 end game cards. So if you're playing a 4-player game, then there's not even a chance that everyone gets one.
Yes.
Where now I can't remember how many have been entered, but there's more end game intrigue cards, which is definitely a good thing.
Yes, and you pick one up and you're just like, ooh. Like it's really exciting moments. Like, oh, I could probably do this. If I concentrate hard enough, I can pull this off. So it gives you it gives you more planning to do, and some more complexity. So yeah, very good.
All right, well, we might wrap up the coverage of the Rise of X expansion there and just get to our final thoughts. So what are your thoughts on this expansion, Sarah?
Well, you know what? Funnily enough, I'm not a huge expansion person. I'm one of these people that always says, "Oh, I really want to play the base game to death before I put, bring an expansion into it. And this expansion has sort of made me rethink my life. No, but I I do think that it's one that you could add, very quickly to the game, especially if you do like sort of heavier games, if you like tech trees, if you like to have a symmetry, you should definitely bring this in straight away. I think it makes the game so much better. I
Mm.
like the base game, but this just really improves it so much. I don't think I would play it. I don't think I could go back.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a huge tick for me. I really enjoy it.
I'm very much the same. It's funny when you talk about teaching this, oh, would you bring the expansion in straight away? It actually doesn't increase the amount of spots to go to on the board because it blocks 4 spaces and adds 4 spaces. And it obviously adds the track, the freighter track. But yeah, this game for me, the expansion is I won't say it's a must have because Dune Imperium is a great game. But if you have this expansion, I can't imagine you ever playing without it for sure.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm at. It's what I want is I want the so I'm not like you, Sarah, and I love expansions, but I'm looking for the neoprene playmat now that is
Of
made
course
for
you
the
are.
expansion without the little bits you got to put onto the board.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm fine with that at the moment. But yeah, this is really good. It's I think the overall this idea that the spaces are very powerful, but because you've got so limited, you got so few actions to take in a round
Yeah.
that in order to benefit from them, you're giving up so much elsewhere. So do you go after a tech? Okay, great. Well, that means I can't get spice this round. Or, or I can't get water, so I can take advantage of the spot that I need to have water to go to because I don't have that many turns to go. I love that. I love the fact that it's like sort of draws your attention away from the main game. But if you spend too much time focusing on the new stuff, you're going to fall behind because you're not focusing on the main game stuff. I
Yeah.
think it really works well. It's a really good balance with the base game.
Yeah. It's definitely more thinky.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a win for me. It's a great expansion, and yeah, can't wait to play it again.
Yeah, me too. With people. That would be good.
Yeah, well, I might try it solo. There we go. We'll do
We'll swap.
that. Okay, well, that will finish up the review for Dune Imperium: Rise of Ix. Thank you so much for watching. Feel free to like and subscribe our channel, and we'll catch you on the next video. Cheers.
Thanks. Bye.